My phone buzzed with a screenshot from my grandmother, and my hands went numb. Mom had posted a picture of my street view on Facebook, caption reading, "Found my baby's house, flight booked for next week." I stared at the image, recognizing the maple tree in my front yard, the blue mailbox I'd painted last spring, the house I'd spent 6 months finding after escaping across 3 states, the address I'd hidden from everyone except my husband Jake and my best friend Sarah. My mother had somehow tracked me down through Google Maps, piecing together clues I didn't even know I'd left behind. "Jake!" My voice came out sharp, panicked. He appeared in the doorway, dish towel in hand. "What's wrong?" I couldn't speak. I just turned the phone toward him. His face drained of color as he read the message, then the timestamp. Posted 2 hours ago. Already 17 comments from relatives I hadn't spoken to in 8 months, all congratulating her, all excited for the reunion. My chest tightened. 8 months of peace, of sleeping without nightmares, of not checking my shoulder in grocery stores. Gone. She'd found me. "We need to call the police," Jake said, reaching for his phone. "And tell them what? That my mother booked a flight?" I laughed, but it sounded broken. "She hasn't threatened me. She's just coming to visit her daughter. That's what she'll say. That's what everyone will believe." Because that was her specialty, looking like the devoted mother, the victim of an ungrateful daughter who moved away without warning. Nobody saw the years of emotional warfare, the manipulation, the way she'd isolated me from friends, controlled every aspect of my life until I was 26 years old and still asking permission to cut my hair. Jake set down his phone and pulled me close. "We'll figure this out. She doesn't know you've seen this yet. We have time." But did we? My grandmother's message had come with her usual plea. "Please, sweetheart, just talk to your mother. Family is everything. You're breaking her heart." The familiar guilt twisted in my stomach, muscle memory from 26 years of conditioning. Then I remembered why I'd left. The night she'd screamed at me for 3 hours because I'd gotten engaged without asking her approval first. The way she'd called Jake's family to tell them I was mentally unstable, that they should convince him to leave me. The threats that if I went through with the wedding, I'd be dead to her. I'd called her bluff, married Jake anyway, then disappeared. Now she'd found me, and she was coming. The next morning, I stood in my kitchen drinking coffee that had gone cold in my shaking hands. Jake had left for work with reluctance, making me promise to keep the doors locked and call him immediately if anything happened. The flight wasn't for another week, according to the Post, but my mother had a history of lying about her plans to catch people off guard. I pulled up Facebook on my laptop, something I hadn't done since going no contact. My mother's profile was public, performative as always. The Street View photo had 63 likes now. My aunt had commented, "So proud of you for never giving up. A mother's love knows no bounds." My stomach churned. I scrolled through her recent posts, seeing the narrative she'd constructed. Missing daughter, worried mother, praying every day that my baby comes home. She'd even posted old photos of us together, carefully curated ones where we looked happy, where you couldn't see the tension in my smile or the way I was leaning away from her grip on my shoulder. The comments were full of sympathy. "You're such a strong woman. She'll realize what she's lost. Kids these days don't appreciate their parents." Not one person asked why I'd left. Not one person questioned her version of reality. My phone rang, an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Finally! You've been ignoring my calls for months." My mother's voice hit me like a physical blow, that familiar mixture of honey and poison. "Did you really think you could hide from me forever? How did you get this number?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "A mother has her ways. Now, let's talk about this little tantrum of yours. I'm willing to forgive you, but you need to apologize for the embarrassment you've caused. Do you know what people have been saying? That I must have been a terrible mother for you to run away like this. You were a terrible mother." Silence. I'd never said it out loud before, never dared. The words hung in the air, and I felt simultaneously powerful and terrified. "How dare you?" Her voice dropped to that dangerous register I knew too well. After everything I've done for you. I raised you alone when your father left. I sacrificed my entire life for you. You used me as an emotional support animal and a punching bag for your ego. There's a difference. You ungrateful little... She caught herself, probably remembering she was trying to manipulate me into compliance. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted to wounded victim. I don't know what that husband of yours has put in your head, but this isn't you talking. You're being manipulated. Jake treats me like a person, not a possession. That's why you hate him. I'm coming to see you next Tuesday. We're going to sit down and work this out like adults. I've already bought the ticket, non-refundable. I didn't invite you. You're not welcome here. A free country. I can visit whatever city I want. And if I happen to knock on my daughter's door, well, what kind of person would turn away their own mother? The threat was clear. She'd make a scene. She'd cry on my doorstep, play the rejected mother for all the neighbors to see. She'd make me look like the villain, the cruel daughter, the heartless monster who abandoned her poor mother. If you come here, I'll call the police. She laughed, that particular laugh that had haunted my childhood. And tell them what? That your mother wants to visit? Oh, honey, you're not thinking clearly. Is why you need me. You never could handle things on your own. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. She'd called my bluff. She was coming anyway, and we both knew there was nothing I could legally do to stop her. No restraining order, no protective order, because she'd never technically threatened me, just emotionally tortured me for 26 years in ways that left no visible scars. Jake came home early, took one look at my face, and knew. She called. I nodded. She's really coming. Tuesday. She said she's going to show up here regardless of what I want. Then we won't be here. We can't just leave. We have jobs, responsibilities. Babe, look at yourself. You're terrified. We're not doing this. We're not letting her terrorize you again. He grabbed his laptop and opened it. We're going to my parents' lake house for the week. Let her knock on an empty door. She'll just come back. This doesn't solve anything. It buys us time to figure out a real solution. Maybe talk to a lawyer about harassment, see what our options are. I wanted to argue, but the relief flooding through me was overwhelming. Not being here when she arrived, not having to face that confrontation on my doorstep, not having to see the disappointment and judgment in my neighbor's eyes when she inevitably made a scene. Okay, but we need to leave Monday night. She might lie about when she's arriving. Jake nodded grimly. I'll work from the lake house. You can take your laptop too. We'll make it work. That weekend, I couldn't focus on anything. Every car that drove past made me jump. Every notification on my phone sent my heart racing. I kept checking my mother's Facebook, watching her post countdown updates. 5 days until I see my daughter. Can't wait to wrap my arms around my baby girl. The comments kept coming. Supportive, encouraging, all aimed at her. My cousin wrote, "You're the best mom ever. She's so lucky to have you." I tried to tell that same cousin about the abuse once, years ago. She'd said I was being dramatic, that all mothers and daughters fight. She didn't understand that normal mothers don't. Scream! Act. They're daughters. Until they have panic attacks. Normal mothers don't tell their children they're worthless, stupid, that nobody will ever love them except her. Normal mothers don't track down their adult children after being told to stay away. Sunday night, Sarah called. She was the only person from my old life I'd stayed in contact with, the only one who'd witnessed enough of my mother's behavior to believe me. I saw the posts, she said without preamble. Are you okay? We're leaving tomorrow, going to hide out at Jake's parents' place until she gives up and goes home. She's been calling me, asking if I know where you are. I told her we lost touch, but I don't think she believed me. My blood ran cold. What did she say? She tried to buddy up to me first, the whole "I'm so worried about her" routine. When that didn't work, she got nasty, said I was a bad friend for keeping you from your family, that I'd regret being part of this. I'm sorry, I never meant to drag you into this. Don't apologize. I'm just calling to warn you that she's resourceful. If she found your house, she might have found other information too. Be careful. After hanging up, I told Jake about the call. His jaw tightened. We should leave tonight, right now. It's 9 o'clock on a Sunday. I don't care. Something feels wrong about this. He was right. 20 minutes later, as we were throwing clothes into suitcases, my phone buzzed with a message from a neighbor 3 houses down, someone I'd only met twice. Hey, there's a woman at your door claiming to be your mother. She says she's worried about you and asked me to check if you're home. Seemed upset. Everything okay? My vision blurred. She was already here. She lied about the flight, about the date, probably bought a ticket for Tuesday just to throw me off. She was at my door right now. Don't answer, Jake said, reading over my shoulder. Get in the car, now. We grabbed what we could and ran to the garage. As Jake backed out, I saw her, standing on our porch, ringing the doorbell again and again. She looked smaller than I remembered, older, almost frail in the porch light, playing the part perfectly. Then she turned and saw the car, saw me in the passenger seat. Her expression shifted in an instant from worried mother to something cold and furious. She started walking toward us, not running, just walking with terrifying determination. Jake hit the gas. We pulled out of the driveway and sped down the street. In the side mirror, I watched my mother standing in the middle of the road, phone raised, recording us as we drove away. Evidence that we'd fled, that we'd refused to even talk to her. More ammunition for her victim narrative. She filmed us leaving, I said, voice hollow. Let her. We're not playing her game. But that was the problem. She was always 3 moves ahead, always ready with the next manipulation. By tomorrow, that video would be on Facebook, with some caption about her heartbroken rejection, her cruel daughter who wouldn't even speak to her. We drove in silence for an hour before Jake spoke again. This can't keep happening. We can't spend our lives running. I know. So what do we do? I didn't have an answer. The lake house was dark when we arrived, just before midnight. Jake's parents weren't there, wouldn't be for another month. We let ourselves in and collapsed on the couch, too exhausted to even unpack properly. My phone buzzed constantly. Messages from relatives I barely knew, all asking what was wrong, why I wouldn't see my mother. Didn't I know how much I was hurting her? My grandmother called 6 times. I didn't answer. Finally, I turned my phone off completely and sat in the darkness listening to the lake water lap against the dock outside. Jake fell asleep next to me, but I couldn't. Every sound made me tense, expecting her to somehow appear here too, to have followed us or tracked us or manipulated someone into giving her this address. The next morning, I made a decision. I turned my phone back on and opened Facebook. Then I did what I'd been too afraid to do for 8 months. I made my own post. No more silence. No more letting her control the narrative. I wrote about the emotional abuse, the manipulation, the threats. The way she'd isolated me from friends and family, convinced me I was worthless without her, made me believe that her treatment was normal and I was the problem for not being grateful. I wrote about the panic attacks, the therapy, the years of damage I was still working to undo. I wrote about why I'd left and why I'd never come back. My finger hovered over the post button for 10 minutes. This would burn every bridge. My grandmother would never forgive me. The relatives who'd been commenting on my mother's posts would turn on me completely. I'd be labeled as crazy, dramatic, a liar seeking attention, but I'd already lost them. They'd chosen her narrative over my silence. Maybe they'd choose her narrative over my truth too. But at least the truth would exist, would be out there for anyone who wanted to see it. I pressed post. The response was immediate and brutal. Within minutes, my mother had commented, "I am heartbroken that my daughter would make up such horrible lies. I'm praying for her mental health and asking for privacy during this difficult time." My aunt. is disgusting. You should be ashamed. My grandmother. Take this down immediately. You're tearing this family apart. But then other comments started appearing. My mother's sister, who I'd barely spoken to. I believe you. Our mother was the same way to us. I'm so sorry I didn't see it happening to you too. A childhood friend. I remember your mom. This doesn't surprise me at all. I'm glad you got out. Even some of my mother's own friends, people I'd never met, were sending private messages. I've known your mother for years, and I've always thought something was off about how she talked about you. Thank you for speaking up. The narrative was fracturing. Not everyone believed me, but enough people did that my mother's perfect victim story had cracks in it. She made more posts trying to defend herself, but each one sounded more desperate, more over the top. Some people started to notice. Jake read through the comments over my shoulder. You did it! You actually fought back! It doesn't change anything. She still knows where we live. Actually, he said slowly, I've been thinking about that. What if we made it not our house anymore? What? We've only lived there 6 months. We could sell it, move somewhere else, start completely fresh, and this time tell absolutely no one where we're going. Not my parents, not Sarah, not anyone who might accidentally let something slip. The idea should have felt like defeat, like letting her win. Instead, it felt like possibility. A real escape, not just a temporary one. That's extreme. So is being stalked. By your mother across state lines. Babe, she's never going to stop. You know that. The only way to really get away is to disappear so completely she can't find you. He was right. I'd been naive to think that moving once would be enough, that she'd eventually give up. People like my mother didn't give up. They escalated. They pushed and manipulated and wore you down until you either broke or surrendered, unless you removed yourself from the board completely. Okay, I said, let's do it. Let's disappear. We stayed at the lake house for 2 weeks while Jake worked remotely and I coordinated with a realtor to list our house. My mother apparently stayed in town for 3 days, posting increasingly unhinged updates about me refusing to answer the door, about how worried she was, about potentially calling for a welfare check. The welfare check actually happened. Police showed up at our empty house, talked to our neighbors, and filed a report that everything seemed fine. The house was just temporarily vacant. My mother was livid. She posted about incompetent police, about a system that didn't care about concerned parents. But without me there to confront, without the dramatic doorstep scene she'd been planning, her story had nowhere to go. People started asking why she was still posting about it days later, why she didn't just call if she was worried, why she was obsessing over an adult daughter who clearly didn't want contact. The cracks in her narrative became chasms. She eventually deleted her most recent posts and went quiet, flew home, posted a vague message about taking time to heal and letting go with love. It was the closest thing to a retreat I'd ever seen from her. Our house sold in 3 weeks, bought by a young couple who loved the maple tree and the blue mailbox. We packed everything we owned, hired movers, and chose our next destination by throwing a dart at a map. Montana. Middle of nowhere, Montana. A small town where nobody knew us and nobody cared about our history. We didn't tell anyone the name of the town, didn't list it on social media, got a P.O. box instead of using our physical address for mail, bought a house under an LLC, created as many barriers as we could think of. My grandmother tried calling a few times, leaving voicemails about family and forgiveness. I sent her a letter explaining that I loved her, but couldn't have contact with anyone who maintained a relationship with my mother. She didn't respond. Sarah was the only person we told, and only after making her swear not to tell anyone, even her husband. She understood, promised to run interference if my mother ever came around asking questions again. 6 months into our new life, I was working at a local bookstore, and Jake had found a job with a small tech company in the nearest city. We had new friends who knew nothing about my past except that I didn't talk to my family. Nobody pushed. In Montana, people respected boundaries. I checked my mother's Facebook less and less. The posts had returned to normal, photos of her garden and complaints about politics. She'd moved on to a new narrative where I simply didn't exist, erased from her story rather than cast as the villain. Somehow, that felt like a win. Then one morning, almost a year after we'd moved, I got a message from a name I didn't recognize. The preview text said, "I'm your half-sister." My heart stopped. I opened it. "My name is Amanda. I just turned 18 and my mom finally told me that I have an older sister. Your mom is my dad's ex-wife. He had an affair while they were married and I was the result. Your mom didn't know about me until recently, but she's been trying to get my dad to help her find you. He refused and told me the truth instead. I wanted you to know she's still looking. She hired a private investigator. Please be careful." I read the message 3 times, my hands shaking. A half-sister, a private investigator? After all this time, after all the distance, my mother was still hunting. But this time, I wasn't afraid. I was angry. I wrote back, "Thank you for warning me. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this. If you want to talk, I'm here. But do not tell your father or anyone else that we've been in contact." Amanda responded immediately. "I won't. I've seen the Facebook posts. I've heard your mom talk about you to my dad. She's not okay. I just thought you should know what you're dealing with." What I was dealing with was a woman who would never stop, who would spend money and time and energy trying to track down a daughter who didn't want to be found, because it wasn't about love. It was about control, about winning, about not accepting that I'd escaped. I showed Jake the messages. His face hardened. "We need to talk to a lawyer, for real this time. See if we can get a restraining order based on this level of harassment." The lawyer we consulted was sympathetic but realistic. Unless she makes a direct threat or shows up at your new location, it's going to be hard to get a judge to issue an order. Hiring a PI isn't illegal. Being persistent isn't illegal. You'd need to prove that her behavior rises to the level of stalking under Montana law. So we just wait until she finds us again? Document everything. Every message, every attempt at contact, every time someone warns you that she's looking. Build a paper trail. If she escalates, you'll have evidence. I started a folder. Screenshots of Facebook posts, my grandmother's voicemails, Amanda's messages, the email from Sarah about my mother's call. A timeline of harassment spanning over a year. It felt both validating and depressing, this physical proof of her obsession. Amanda and I started talking regularly. She was smart, cautious, damaged in her own ways by a father who'd cheated and abandoned her, a mother who'd raised her alone. She understood dysfunction, even if she didn't fully understand mine. "Your mom told my dad that you're mentally ill," Amanda said during one of our calls. "That you need help, but you're too sick to realize it." She's really good at making herself sound reasonable and concerned. That's her superpower. She can convince anyone that she's the victim and I'm the crazy one. For what it's worth, I don't think you're crazy. I think you're brave. Those words meant more than she probably knew. My whole life, I'd been told I was overreacting, too sensitive, unable to handle normal parental discipline. Having someone, especially someone connected to my mother's world, say I was brave, it felt like vindication. 3 months later, Amanda called in tears. "She found me on Instagram, your mom. She's been messaging me, trying to get me to give her information about you, saying that you're in danger and she needs to find you to help. I blocked her, but she made another account. I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to get harassed too. It's not your fault, but you were right about her. She's relentless." I called the lawyer again, added Instagram harassment to the folder. He reviewed everything and sighed. "This is building into a pattern. If she contacts Amanda again or makes any attempt to contact you directly, we might have enough for a case." My mother must have sensed the walls closing in because she suddenly shifted strategies. Instead of posting about me, she started posting about her own healing journey, about learning to let go of toxic relationships, even with family, about how painful it was to accept that some people couldn't be helped. She'd flipped the script entirely. Now she was the brave one, walking away from me, the victim turned survivor. It would have been funny if it wasn't so infuriating. Let her have that narrative, Jake said. If it means she stops looking for you, let her tell everyone she's the one who ended things. He was right. My ego didn't matter. My peace mattered. If my mother wanted to claim victory, fine, as long as she left me alone. But she couldn't even do that. 2 weeks after her healing journey posts started, I got an email forwarded from my old account. My mother had written to the bookstore where I worked, claiming to be a concerned family member trying to reach me for an emergency. The owner, bless her, had told my mother that she couldn't share employee information and suggested she try calling the police if there was a real emergency. My mother had then posted on Facebook about the cruel bookstore owner who refused to help a mother find her missing daughter. She'd tagged the store's page, left a 1-star review claiming terrible customer service. That was it. That was the line. She'd dragged innocent people into her vendetta, tried to damage a small business because they wouldn't help her stalk me. I was done being passive. I filed a police report, documented everything. The year of attempted contact, the private investigator, the harassment of Amanda, the attempt to manipulate my employer. I requested a restraining order. The officer taking my report looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I have to ask, is it possible your mother is genuinely worried about you? For a year? After I've told multiple people to tell her I'm fine but don't want contact, while making social media posts about how she's moved on? No, this isn't concern. It's harassment. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks out. I was terrified my mother would somehow find out about it and show up. But we'd filed in Montana, under my married name, in a county where she had no connections. There was no reason she'd know unless someone told her. The night before the hearing, I barely slept. Jake held my hand in the courtroom the next morning as I presented my folder of evidence to the judge. My lawyer walked through the timeline, highlighted the escalation, emphasized the fact that I'd been running from my mother for over a year and she was still actively trying to find me. The judge reviewed everything in silence. Then she looked up. This is highly unusual. I don't often see restraining orders requested against parents by adult children, but I also don't often see documentation this thorough of persistent, unwanted contact. I'm going to grant a temporary order. Your mother will be served notice that she is to have no contact with you, directly or indirectly, for 1 year. After that, we'll review whether to make it permanent. I burst into tears right there in the courtroom. Jake wrapped his arms around me as the judge finalized the paperwork. A year of protection. A year where my mother legally could not contact me, could not hire people to find me, could not post about me on social media. The order was served 3 days later. My mother's response was immediate and predictable. She posted a long message about being attacked by her daughter through the legal system, about false accusations and court abuse, about how she'd never done anything but love me, and this was how I repaid her. But this time, the post included a copy of the restraining order, which meant people could read it, could see the documented evidence, could see that a judge had found her behavior concerning enough to legally intervene. The comments were split, but more people than I expected were questioning her now, asking why a judge would issue an order without cause, pointing out that restraining orders weren't easy to get, wondering what the full story was. My mother deleted the post within hours. Then she deleted her entire Facebook account, disappeared from social media completely, taking her narrative with her. Amanda texted, "She's furious. My dad said she's talking about appealing, but he also said he told her if she violates the order, he won't help her with legal fees. I think she's finally realizing she lost." Lost. Such a simple word for something so complicated. My mother hadn't lost a daughter. She'd lost control over a person she'd never really seen as separate from herself. And maybe now, finally, she'd have to sit with that reality. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. Mostly I felt exhausted. Grieving, in a strange way, for the mother I'd never had, for the relationship that could have been if she'd been capable of real love instead of obsessive possession. Jake and I stayed in Montana. The bookstore owner, after the dust settled, gave me a raise and told me she admired my courage. Our new friends became real friends, the kind who checked in without demanding explanations. I started therapy to work through 26 years of damage, and slowly, carefully, I started to heal, started to believe I deserved peace, started to build a life that was mine, not a reaction to her or an escape from her, but genuinely mine. The restraining order has 6 months left. After that, we'll see what happens. Maybe she'll respect it, maybe she'll try again. But this time, I have legal protection. I have documentation. I have a support system that believes me. I have a life she can't touch. That's worth everything I lost to get here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Was going completely no contact the right choice? Or should I have tried one more time to set boundaries with my mother before disappearing?